I want to talk now about the teacher who's been banned from teaching after telling a Muslim child that Britain is a Christian country. This is absolutely outrageous. The primary school teacher was referred to his local child protection board over comments made to the pupil at a school in London. A senior detective from the Metropolitan Police's child abuse investigation team also became involved. He allegedly admonished students for washing their feet in the sinks in boys' lavatories. Police were called in to investigate an alleged hate crime. I mean, that is just not a hygienic thing to do. It was claimed he reminded the children that Islam remained a minority religion in the UK. That is factual. That is the case. That is the truth. That is objective truth. Yet this person was removed from working with children. This is an absolutely outrageous case, and it is yet more evidence of the fact that political correctness is taking over this country. The woke madness at the heart of the education profession. Chris McGovern is chairman of the Campaign for Real Education, a retired head teacher, former advisor at 10 Downing Street. Chris, what do you make of this?
Well, I won't say I'm alarmed, because I've been alarmed for a very long time. Obviously, it's worrying, and it's very sinister, because we have an established church in this country. It's the Church of England. We are a Christian country, and we have a king who's head of that church. But what this reminded me of, Peter, is my own situation some years ago when I lost my job because I criticised a model exam question which asked children to imagine they were members of the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization, and to explain or to give a reason why they massacred the athletes at the Olympic Games and why they blew up aircraft and so forth. I criticised that. And even though I had, Margaret Thatcher on side and so forth, it didn't stop me from losing my job in the state sector when I moved into the independent sector. So I sympathise with this, but I would say it is nothing new. It's a growing cancer in our education system. The education system has been taken over, it has been captured. There are certain things you may say, and there are certain things you may not say. And you may not say that the Church of England or the Christian faith is the established faith in our country, which is sinister. And I think MPs and Parliament and governors need to get involved in this. But they lack the backbone. They lack the nerve to actually challenge people who are saying, you can't say that. You can't say that we are a Christian civilization. So how would I feel? I'm appalled, but not surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I can totally see where you're coming from. And his legal claim, the teacher's legal claim against the local authority, hasn't been named, by the way. He doesn't want his identity to become public. And you can understand why, especially when you look at what happened to that teacher at the Batley Grammar School, who still remains in hiding. Lawyers for the teacher pointed out the school was a non-faith school. Prayers had been informally banned from the playground, and by extension that included washing feet in the sinks, confined to a prayer room set aside for the purpose. So it wasn't as if Muslim children weren't allowed to pray. Of course they were allowed to pray. There was a room for them in order to do that. People who observe the Islamic faith seriously pray 5 times a day, and that's fine if they want to do that. But the school suspended the teacher in March last year, subsequently sacking him. In April last year, he was informed he was being referred to the Safeguarding Board as well as to the Metropolitan Police. The police inquiry was subsequently dropped. I mean, this is just yet another example, Chris, of massive overreach, of authorities that don't know how to deal with something reasonably and in a common sense way. And I think, as the home of common sense, as a station where there are so many people who have common sense, who ring in, who text in, who let me know what they think every single day, they will be absolutely appalled to hear this story, where not only is someone being victimised here, but common sense is just not being used.
It is blatant victimisation. But also, Peter, what worries me here is incredibly divisive, because the majority of people in this country, and I suspect probably the majority of Muslims, will also be very offended by what's going on here. So it divides our country. And it means also that, the other teachers will be afraid now in the classroom to say certain things. It's not just this one case. It has a knock-on effect. Yep. You may say this, you may not say that. And as you say, there have been other cases where teachers have stepped out of line. Catherine Burble-Singer, her teacher in Brent, she actually stopped religious activities of all sorts in her school and won the case.
She's a total hero, by the way.
Great school. It's a great school. But head teachers need to be supported by local authorities and by the police. It seems perfectly okay, perfectly legitimate to say to any pupil that the religion in this country, the established religion by law, is the Church of England. That's just a fact, as you've said. Yeah. Look, we respect our Muslim brothers and sisters. Of course we do. But they are not the established religion. And this is going to divide our society. People are going to be upset and they're going to be angry. And that's bad. So these fools who are making these decisions need to understand what are the implications of this judgment. Most people will support the teacher. It's outrageous.
It's also a complete bastardization of what safeguarding boards are for. They were set up in 2004 in the wake of the murders of Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman. We remember those disgusting and horrific murders by Ian Huntley, the school caretaker. They're intended to protect children from dangers posed by adults working around them, and that is absolutely fine, and that's what schools need to do. There need to be safeguarding aspects if you're working with children, but as we've seen in so many different occasions, this one and one we were talking about yesterday, we see this vast overreach as well, and nobody's reining this in, are they, Chris? There's no leadership here from the top saying, for goodness sake, apply some common sense here, work this out and say, look, you know, they weren't happy with what you said. You perhaps shouldn't have said it, but there's no reason why you should. I can't think of any reason why you wouldn't say Britain is a Christian country. It is a Christian country. We have strong Judeo-Christian values that have established this country. We have an established church. We have an Archbishop of Canterbury. The monarch, for goodness sake, is head of the Church of England. That is a fact and has been for literally over 500 years. Yet we're in a situation here where the Free Speech Union has had to say, Lord Young, the director of the Free Speech Union, says this teacher lost his job and almost ended up being barred from the profession for life just because he pointed out to a class of Muslim school children that the national religion of England is Anglicanism. Things have reached a pretty pass in this country. If a teacher can be branded a safeguarding risk because he says something that is incontestably true, if he'd claimed that Islam is the official religion of England, even though that's not true, I doubt he would have got into any trouble. And that is the case, Chris.
It is the case. And, you know, a good teacher would explain to children that actually Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are Abrahamic faiths. They have a common core, and there are things in common. But this country certainly, children need to understand this. It is Christian. Western Europe is Christian, and our culture, our religions, our music, our literature is defined by Christianity. That's just a simple fact. Yeah. And teachers should be feeling free to educate children along that pathway, but they're going to be scared. I mean, if you're a teacher now and you think I might lose my job if I step out of line, you mentioned the teacher in Yorkshire who had to go into hiding. Yep. You're going to be very, very fearful, and having an atmosphere of fear in the classroom will put a lot of people off. And this is the problem, Chris. This is the problem, because there'll be so many people watching and listening out there who will say you can't say anything anymore, and I always say you can say basically whatever you want within the law. Free speech within the law is the law of this country, and that's the way things should be. But the point is that people will self-censor. People will say, okay, here is a fact, but for example, Britain is a Christian country, but I'm not going to state it. I'm not going to state it. I'm not going to say that because I don't know what's going to happen to me. If you look at what happened to this teacher, 3 children filed written complaints against him. 9 people examined them, including the local safeguarding officer, a detective sergeant from the child abuse investigation team. Stating facts to a child is apparently worthy of investigation by a detective sergeant, a senior officer from the child abuse investigation team, 2 social workers, an HR advisor, and the school's head teacher. The children claimed they were upset and scared by the teacher's outburst, and they then shouted at them. Ooh, a teacher shouts at you. That's what happens in schools. Yeah, and I think probably the parents would have put up the children to write these letters. Look, we have to expect leadership from the government. We have a decent, I think, Home Secretary. She's from my area, Ladywood in Birmingham. I think she's a Muslim, but she needs to get a grip on this. We desperately need some leadership, political leadership, to say this is far enough. Teachers have got to feel back, but they don't. They feel scared, and the politicians are scared. We've got to stop being scared and stand up for the good things in this country. It includes toleration and understanding, but it doesn't include obliterating our identity. And this is what's going on here, an atmosphere of a culture of fear and intimidation in our classroom. It's disastrous and will put many people off going into teaching. So you're right to raise the issue. It's an important issue. We desperately need politicians to give us some leadership and to show some backbone.
Thank you, Chris. I agree with every word you've said. Chris McGovern is the chairman of the Campaign for Real Education. He's a retired head teacher himself and a former advisor at 10 Downing Street.